Again. Hey, what's going on here? I got a very special guest today. We have Dr. John Byrne. He's a five-time competitor of Leadville. What's Leadville? It's a 100-mile race through the clouds of the Rocky Mountains, which is over 10,000 elevation, and you got to complete it in 30 hours. He's wrote the book Winning with Grit, and he's been a professor at the collegiate level for over 30 years. He has 5 kids, 3 grandkids, huge Notre Dame fan, and been married for 33 years. And most importantly, he's raised over $50,000 through his Leadville races. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Jordan. Really thrilled to be with you today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here on the Clockedin podcast. So, John, where does your story start? When you were growing up, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and when did Leadville sneak its way in there?
All right. Well, the Cliff Note version. I was born on a farm in eastern Iowa, and my parents had 13 children, and I'm the 12th of 13, the youngest boy and the second youngest child, and was raised in Iowa, did college at Iowa State for 2 years and Notre Dame for 2 years. Then I went to Chicago and I was a commercial banker for about 4 years. And then my wife and I were starting our family, so we wanted to get back to Iowa. And I moved to what is known as the Quad Cities. I live in one of those 4 cities called Bettendorf. Been here for 30 years. And following a career in banking, I started teaching business classes at Saint Ambrose University, which is a private Catholic institution right on the Mississippi River. And so that's what I've been doing the last 30 years for my day job. And on the side, I do professional speaking, and I also do business seminars and some coaching. And I'm hoping that'll be my second career as I'm getting closer to retirement. It's hard to leave this job of teaching because I really love the college students, but life is, a banquet, and it's time to feast on some of the other fruits out there. And I just get a real big charge out of talking to a group and trying to inspire and help people achieve their dreams and goals. So that's a little bit of background about where I came from in my job. The other part, Jordan, that you asked about was Leadville and how that entered into my life. And this is a really fascinating story because I didn't grow up as a runner. I did go out for track for 2 years, once in junior high and once in high school, for the sole purpose of trying to get faster for the football team. I never really liked running. I always viewed it as something that you kind of need to do to stay in shape and to be better at your other sports, but did not have this love affair of running, and actually probably could say I actually kind of despised it, just did it as a necessary evil. So you might be saying, wow, a guy that doesn't like running, what are you running 100-mile races for? Well, here's the funny thing. So when I'm 26 years old, I'm living in Chicago and came back to visit my parents over Christmas break. And it just so happened that my sister, who's a year older than I was back for Christmas break as well. She was a high school teacher out in Colorado. And in big families, you do a lot of teasing. And so we were sitting there just in the living room chatting, and she gets this silly grin on her face. And I knew something was coming, but I didn't know what it was. And she said, John, she said, I got this thing that you really should be doing. I'm like, Kim, okay, what is it? And she said, well, out in Colorado, there's these crazy mountain men, and they run 100 miles through the mountains. I think you should sign up for that. And I chuckled and said, yeah, that's really funny. No, thank you. I'm not really interested. But I was intrigued. Just the fact that anyone can run 100 miles and then do it up and down mountains, that was impressive, even though I wasn't a fan of running. So we did talk about it a little bit. And she told me a few things about it from what she had heard. So here's the interesting thing, Jordan. For the next 13 years, I can't ever remember thinking about Leadville, talking to anybody about Leadville. It was just one of those moments that just sort of stuck in time. And apparently was
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, but there's no reason to access it. So fast forward 13 years later, I'm 39 years old. And before the podcast, you and I were just talking about sort of what happens in your life when you hit these crossroads, or you meet certain people, or you make a certain decision, how your life can just like take a whole different direction. Well, I feel like my life has been a series of these things. When I think about my job, when I think about Leadville, when I think about all these things, it was almost like serendipity, or just kind of a random chance that these things happen, and they had this major impact on my life. So I'm 39 years old. I'm teaching at Saint Ambrose. I have 5 children. The career's going well. And I have this opportunity through our university. We have a professional development center. And in addition to teaching undergraduates and graduate students, we also educate the community. And so there's a lot of corporations where managers need training, employees need training. And so that's an arm of the university where we feel like we can add value to the community and, earn some income as well. So the director of the Professional Development Center, Maureen Conway, she calls me up and said, John, we're starting a coaching school. And what we really want to do is we want to train some people to be coaches. So we're going to talk to some of our corporate partners. And then as people need work coaching, life coaching, we're going to have people that we can assign them to and help them develop in their career. And we're offering a class, and I'm looking for good people to be involved, and was wondering if you'd like to be trained to be a certified coach and, work with us some. I like Maureen a lot. And actually the idea of this sounded pretty interesting, but I was sort of busy. I had a lot of things going on. I was doing a lot of teaching. 5 kids, they're all pretty active in things. And it was just one of those times where I was like, maybe not now. I think my plate's pretty full. So I remember saying to her, Maureen, I appreciate the offer. This sounds really interesting, but I'm just kind of busy right now, and I don't really think I should take anything else on.
Yeah.
I said, but I'm a team player. I care about Saint Ambrose, and I like you. And I know you're working hard to get this thing going. So I tell you what, if you need me, if you aren't able to get enough people to do this, give me a call and I'll do it. And she said, okay, John, thank you. I appreciate your willingness. So I hang up the phone. 24 hours later, I get a call. John, I need you. Okay, Maureen, I'll be there. So I go through the class. It's like a 5-day class. And it was great. I mean, learn a lot about coaching, how to, help people find their whys and, encourage them. I mean, a lot of coaching is just helping people build confidence and discover what they already know. And you can lead them a little bit, but it's not about telling people what to do. It's helping them to find their true self. So I went through the class and I really enjoyed it. So I have a certificate. I'm a certified coach. It's kind of cool. And I think the class is over on Friday, and they do give us our certificates, but sort of on the honor code, they say, listen, here's your certificate, but your training is not done yet. What you need to do is you're going to be coached for 6 30-minute sessions with the trainer for the purpose of you need to know what it's like to be coached to make you a better coach for somebody else. Like, oh boy. Okay, whatever. I've done all the training. We'll finish this up. I can do 6 30-minute sessions. No big deal. And I really liked the trainer. Her name was Bobby Gemma. She lives in Florida. And so the next week she calls me up and said, John, here's our first session. I said, okay, Bobby, I'm ready. Let's go. And she said, well, typically this is how it goes. He says, I usually ask you about some troubles or problems that you're having at work, and we talk through those, and then we try to find a solution and develop an action plan of how you can resolve this and move forward and achieve your goals. And so that's where I'd like to start is, can you tell me about some problems that maybe you're having at work that you'd like to work on that you're struggling with? And for a moment, I thought, I'm pretty good on my feet. I could come up with something to tell her and kind of, work through this and be done. But the truth was, I have a great job. And not that the life of a professor is absolutely perfect. I mean, sure, it's frustrating sometimes if you feel like your students aren't motivated, or you catch a student plagiarizing
Yeah.
or something. I mean, some of your coworkers, you don't get along with the best. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
heaven 100% of the time. But for the most part, this job is amazing. Number one, I'm my own boss. I mean, I cover what I want in class. I have some guidelines, but if I want to do a group activity, or I want to show a video, or I want to give a lecture, and I have so much flexibility and latitude that if you can't be happy being a college teacher, wow, you're probably going to have trouble being happy doing just about anything. So to be honest, there wasn't anything with meat to talk about. And I told her that. I said, Bobby, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I said, I just don't feel like there's any problems of substance to really work through. And, I'm not sure how to answer this question.
Yeah.
That's okay, John. She said, let's try another angle. She said, I want you to answer this question for me. She said, what fires your jets? I said, excuse me? She said, yeah. What fires your jets? Everybody has something in life that gets them excited, that like you just can't wait to jump out of bed in the morning and get after it because it's so awesome and so cool and so fun. She said, I want to know what fires your jets. What is it in life that just really turns you on and makes you super excited? Yeah, it threw me for a loop because like this has nothing to do necessarily with work. It's just a question. And again, I thought, okay, I'm quick on my feet. I could think of something. I could kind of breeze through this. But the way she asked the question, it just hit me. And I stopped in my tracks and I thought, that's a great question. Isn't that a question all of us on the planet should be able to answer? What gets us excited about life? I mean, shouldn't we be living that life? And so I asked a favor for her. I said, Bobby, great question. I don't have the answer that I want to give you right now. Do you mind if I take a week to think about it? And I promise you, I will think about it. No problem. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, so, real quick. I just want to butt in right there just because I think that's so important that everybody listening should realize that you should be asking yourself what excites you, what fires you up. And the reason I say that is because the earlier we are able to do this in our life, the more we're able to be more of who we are. Like
absolutely.
We're going to hear the rest of John's story, but I just want to bring that up because that moment changed the direction of his life.
Absolutely. And I'll get back to the story in a second, but Jordan, here's another thing I want to say to you. I'm 56 years old, almost 57. And I don't know your age, but I know you're a lot younger. And you and I met at a Tony Robbins 4-day seminar about a month ago. And there were a bunch of people there that were of your age and younger. And I'm just thinking, how cool is it that these people in their 20s and 30s are doing seminars like this to try and figure out what fires their jets? And again, I have no complaints. I've had a good life and I was really glad to be with Tony when I'm 56. But sometimes I think, wow, what if I had the vision and I was wise enough to go do this when I was 22 or 23? And that's okay, water under the bridge. But to your point, any of the people listening in your audience, it's never too late. I mean, there's 101-year-old guys running marathons, so never too late. But the sooner you can get started on some of this stuff, the more enriching and rewarding your life can be for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, and anybody else that you care about. So anyway, back to the story. So a week later, I did think about this for a week, and a week later, we connected on the phone. And she said, John, how are you doing? I said, Bobby, I'm doing fantastic. I said, I tell you what, I've got the answer to your question. She said, great. What is it? I said, well, here's what it is, Bobby. I said, I figured out what fires my jets is I like to be around motivation. And I said, I know everybody's different, but there are certain authors that I read, so some of my favorites, Norman Vincent Peale, Stephen Covey, Jack Canfield, Dale Carnegie. When I read their books, I feel like just a level of energy rising in my blood. Like I'm optimistic, I'm positive. I like the way they write. It makes sense to me. And it's just like life can be 5 times better after I read their books. And, I've had the joy. I throw Tony Robbins in there now as well, but I didn't know really about him back at that time. But I said, then there's also people I hear speak. And, a few examples is like Stephen Covey. Went to hear him speak live. It was amazing. I told you I was a Notre Dame fan. So the last national championship they won was under a guy named Lou Holtz. And he's a tremendous speaker. And so when I listen to these guys speak, again, I feel like this incredible motivation, like, wow, I'm inspired. I could go run through a brick wall. And just talking about it, I could tell them getting excited. I said, I just love it. And I said, Bobby, there's a few occasions where I feel like I've been that person for somebody, whether I've given a talk or just inspired somebody to be better. And I said, that is the greatest feeling in the world. I feel like I'm on cloud 9 and I can't think of anything better in my life than those kind of things, reading about, listening to, or being that motivational guy.
Yeah.
And I said, so there's my answer. And she said, John, that is great. I said, thank you. She said, what are you going to do about it? I said, well, I didn't know I had to do anything about it. I thought you just wanted me to answer the question. And she said, no. She said, I can feel your passion. I can feel that energy. You have to do something about this. What are you going to do about it? And now I'm back to ground zero. I'm like, oh, shoot, where am I going? I said, well, and I'm trying to think out loud and stammer a little bit. I said, I guess my dream would be to be a motivational speaker, inspire people. I said, but I had a pretty ordinary life. I grew up in a loving family and great parents. Nobody's life is perfect, but I didn't have any tragedy, the tragedies that you hear about. I remember recently I would listen to a speaker. His name was Scott O'Grady, and he was like over, I think in Croatia or Kosovo or something. And basically his helicopter was shot down. And so like for 5 days, he had to basically hide under leaves and grass. And the soldiers were like within a foot of him at different times, trying to hunt him down. And anyway, the long story short, 5 days later, he was able to escape and be rescued by the American troops. So it's like, okay, of course you want to hear this guy speak. He's got this incredible story. And Lou Holtz, like he's won a national championship. He's a very successful college football coach. Who wouldn't want to hear him speak? And then you've got John Byrne. Who would want to hear him speak? What's great about this guy? I'm a good guy. I mean, I'm a nice person. I was a good student. I'm a good worker. I'm a nice person. But that's not very exciting. If I'm out in the public and someone tells me about John Byrne, I'm not jumping for joy like, well, why should I listen to this guy? So I'm processing all this and said, what I really like to do is be a motivational speaker. I said, but I haven't really done anything of, maybe if I could do something like incredible that would make people interested in seeing me, that give me kind of a platform to speak from. Then I paused and I said, Bobby, I'm going to run Leadville. She said, what? I said, I know this doesn't make any sense to you. I said, but my sister told me about this race 13 years ago. It's a 100-mile race through the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. And I'm not a runner, but I could do that. I'm tough enough and I can persevere enough. I could do that. And that would be something pretty remarkable. And if I achieve that, I think I could get people who'd be interested in come and listen to me talk about motivation, inspiration, goal setting, teamwork, achievement, and all that.
Yeah.
That's how I ran Leadville.
And I
I ran
love it.
Leadville
And
because my
yeah,
sister was teasing me about something she never thought I would do, because I ended up joining a coaching class that I really didn't plan on doing. And then I was, challenged by a coach to answer a question I wasn't even thinking about. And then 13 years later, from long-term memory, this idea explodes out of my brain and it changed the direction of my life. And now I would do one Leadville. I've run the race 5 times, and I've done a ton of other stuff after the age of 40 that I never dreamed I could even do before the age of 40.
yeah, and it's so amazing, and it really comes down to the intentionality. But if you're not asking yourself these questions that provoke, what excites me? What do I want to do? Do I want to make a podcast? Do I want to be a speaker? Do I want to be a musician? Do I, whatever it is, whatever you get a little tingle from, being in a world lifting competition, whatever it is,
Yeah.
donating your time to the homeless, it doesn't matter. But if once you figure that out, you have to try these experiences to get there, because that's what John's getting at. It never came down to, oh, I'm gonna run Leadville from like to be this guy. No, it was Leadville was part of the process. And the process really opened him up. But so John, with Leadville, how from your declaration to running it, how long was this process? This is not because
Well,
I bring this up because I just ran the New York City Marathon with my brother, and you're looking at 4 months there, at least
sure.
4 to 6 months. So I'm just curious how long your
The
getting
first
through
time
the
I ran
process
Leadville,
was.
so I made the decision to run Leadville in late September, and the race was the following August. So it was
Wow.
about 11 months, which was good because you need that much time to prepare for it, especially if you aren't training. I will say that in the year 2000, I was 35 years old. I did run a marathon, and not because I wanted to, but it was on the bucket list of my wife. And she's like, I want to run a marathon. Would you train for a marathon with me? And would you run one with me? I'm like, sure, I'll do that. So I did run 26.2 with her. 2/3 into our training, we found out she was pregnant with our 5th child. And the doctors are like, well, you've been training, just take it easy and you'll be fine. So kind of a running joke in our family is that our youngest son, who now is 20, he ran his first marathon when he was in utero. But, prior to that, the furthest I had ever run was 11 miles. And after the marathon, my typical run would be like maybe 3 miles, 1 to 3
Yeah.
miles, and try to run them fast. And again, because I want to be a better basketball player, I want to be in shape. But I was never one of those guys that ran 5, 10, 15, 20 miles. That just wasn't me. It didn't interest me. I didn't want to do it. Well, once I signed up for Leadville, now the learning curve starts. Like, okay, I made this commitment. I want to run this race. I've got a good purpose, a good reason for wanting to do it. Now, how do I start getting ready? And so it was a 9-month process, and it was a doozy, man. And again, this is a world that I didn't even know. So all
Yeah.
of a sudden I'm trying to learn about how to do this, and I'm trying to change my training regimen, and I'm running into all sorts of issues that I never encountered before. If you don't run more than 2 or 3 miles, when someone says to you, well, chafing, that's a problem. You're like, what is chafing?
Yeah.
You run anything over 10 miles, you know what chafing is. And
Yeah.
that's where you better make sure that you put Vaseline on and body glide and things like that,
Yeah.
because you'll get skin burns on your thighs or underneath your arms, where your arms rubbing against your chest. And, if you wear a shirt, and you better grease your
Yeah.
chest or you'll be bleeding. And so that was just one example, but there are so many things to learn. And running 100 miles is so much more than running 100 miles. It's navigating an experience that involves managing pain, managing blisters, managing injury, nutrition, hydration. We haven't even, you mentioned 10,000 feet of elevation. We haven't even touched on that yet. Leadville averages 2 miles above sea level. The short story is it's about 3 times as hard to breathe as it is in, typical sea level environments.
Yeah. And the best part is that we saw John made a decision. And once he decided he was going for it, he followed through and went through it. Because I can guarantee you, there are hundreds of people who go, impossible, impossible. You have to run 25 marathons beforehand to qualify. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just got to make a decision. And that's why people are like, oh, I'm going to start a business. You can't start. You can. You can do all of this. You can do any of it. You can do whatever you want. But we need to take that moment to realize that it comes down to that decision and taking massive action along with that. Because you can decide and then not train.
One thing I've learned in my life, Jordan, is that when you really want something, people can put all of the barriers in front of you and make it so difficult for you to achieve something. They can make it so hard. But if you really want it, you can and you will find a way. You'll go over the obstacle, through the obstacle, under the obstacle, around the obstacle, but the obstacle won't stop you. If you want it, you will get it. If you want it bad enough, in most cases. I mean, there's always the exception, it's like, okay, well, let's say you're physically not gifted and you're like, well, I want to play in the NFL. Okay, well, that may not happen. But, for 99% of the things, whether it's, I want to learn to play the guitar, I want to run my own business, I want to be a millionaire, I want to write a book, whatever, almost anything, with enough determination and conviction, you really can do anything you want in your life. And sometimes people say, making a decision is you're 95% of the way there. And it's true. And it's not that it's easy once you make the decision, but now you have this power and this conviction behind you, which will drive all of your actions and make sure that you succeed. So the flip side of this is, I said, if you really want something, we can put up all the barriers in the world and you'll still find a way to get through it. The flip side is, if you haven't committed to something, you don't know if you want it, or you're just really not sure. Yeah. People can make it as easy as pie. All you got to do is walk through this door and it's yours. You won't.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. Even though it is so easy, most people won't do something if they don't want it, they're not convicted. But if you have that conviction, you can't make it hard enough to stop someone. And if you don't have the conviction, you can't make it easy enough for someone to just do it, because they won't. The motivation isn't there.
Yeah. And you see this all the time and you can see this in everyday life. But what I was going to get at is, it might not always come in the time frame you think it will come, but with enough time, you can definitely figure it out. And the other big element of that is, as you were saying, sometimes it's easy and people don't want to do it. That's when people come down to, I'm too busy, I can't handle that, that's too much going on. Because as you saw, if John did the classic, I'm too busy, which I know we hear all the time, and I have a very difficult time believing that everyone is so busy that they can't respond or can't do something, then John never would have been in that coaching group. John never would have asked that question. You never would have been asked that question. You never would have decided on Leadville. So you kind of have to open up to some of these opportunities that come your way and put down your blinders of, I'm too busy, and maybe hear people out on their situation and see what it could be. Because it really opens up the perspective of where it is.
Yeah.
So
relative to what you're saying there, I love your background. You got a clock there. And so here's my comment. Everybody has 24 hours a day. Tom Brady has 24 hours. Jordan, you have 24 hours. John Byrne, I have 24 hours. President Biden has 24 hours. Ex-President Trump has 24 hours. LeBron James has 24 hours. Tony Robbins has 24 hours. We all have 24 hours. Nobody has any more time than anybody else. And, I guess a typical one is fitness. You'll hear all the time. It's like, oh, gosh, I really want to get in shape. I just don't have the time to work out. Really? Because other people seem to find the time to work out. I have friends, they're at the gym at 5 a.m. every morning. They're busy. They're there at 5 because they need to be at work at 7. They need to pick up their kids at 4 in the afternoon. They make the time to do it. And we all have that power. And so, time management, whatever, or time prioritization, that's where it's all at. We have the time to do what we truly want to do. And here's a silly example. And, this will make people sit up in their chair. Many of us have a favorite television show, whether it's The Bachelor or Chicago Fire or whatever. I don't care what it is. Or I want to watch the Miami Dolphins or Notre Dame football. Isn't it interesting how people, 9 times out of 10 find a way to be in front of their television at 8:00 on Wednesday night because their show is on. And if for some reason something comes up, okay, all right, well, maybe my spouse died. Okay, I'll probably go to the visitation there. But then they find a way to record this show and they'll watch it later that night or they'll watch it the next day. So it's because for whatever reason, that's really important to them. Well, we can place that level of priority on anything that's important to us. So, I don't have time to, go shopping to buy healthy foods. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to read. Gosh, I'd like to read more. I don't have time to read. I don't have time to go on a walk with my kids or my spouse, or I don't have time to call my mom, or I don't have time to go out with my friends. It's a line of BS. We all have time to do what is most important. Sometimes we're really good at filling it up with other stuff that's really not even that important, but it bugs me when people say that. And shamefully, I've said it at different times, but it is just totally untrue. And, look at all the role models out there. We all know these people. It's like, how do you get all this stuff done? Do you have like 36 hours in a day when everyone else has 24? Absolutely not. They have the same amount of time. But when you're committed, you get it done.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the reason the name of the podcast is #Clockedin with Jordan Edwards, because I had this whole philosophy of going to the gym. And whenever we would go to the gym, I would always put up #Clockedin. Why? Because I was getting my work done. I've always viewed this in my life of what is meaningful minutes. What in my life is meaningful? If I read, is that an investment for later time? Yes. Is this podcast? Yes. Is me working out? Yes. Is a date? Potentially, if it ends up working out, but it could also go wrong, but you could still also learn from that. Is hanging out with friends just drinking? No. It depends. If there's an idea from it, it depends. Like it's all good or bad. And it's not that saying one's right and one's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just having the awareness of knowing, hey, I'm doing this for 3 hours. I'm going to golf and that's all I'm going to do. And once you realize that, then you never get in this place of I don't have too much time. When someone says that to you, it's basically saying, I don't want to prioritize you in my schedule. And we've all been there. And that's just the truth of what it is. Like, yes, there's some people that are super busy, but most are not. Like most can handle it.
And everyone on this planet's different. And it's a good thing that we don't all want to do the same. If everybody wanted to run Leadville, I probably couldn't get into the race because they have to limit participation. If everyone wanted to be a college professor, I might not have my job.
Yeah.
So we're not all meant to do the same thing. And I'm not trying to say that everyone should be in tip-top shape. I'm not trying to say that everyone should read a lot of books. I'm not trying to say that people shouldn't watch television. I mean, I'm a big believer in do what makes you happy, but
Yeah.
what I feel for people is when they think or say they want to do one thing, but then they're doing another. And then they'll use time as an excuse
That
or just a ton of other
that
things as an excuse why they're not living the life that they want.
so that comes down to accountability, which most people don't have. So when you have a coach or a group, like I offer a group on Monday nights, and we do that where it's accountable to what is the goal that you're looking to do.
Right.
Because the one thing is to declare it, yes, but then you need to be consistently checking on that goal. Hey, where's the progress? Where's the progress? Where's the progress? Not in a good or bad way, but it's just a very honest way of,
Right.
hey, we're doing that, we're not doing that. And so back on the Leadville topic,
Sure.
why 5 times?
Ha! Awesome question. Thank you so much for asking it. Okay, so the first time was, as I told you, I wanted to do something wow that could launch my speaking career. Mission
Yeah.
accomplished. We could talk about the first one. It was a really hard one. I finished with 2 minutes to spare, almost didn't finish
Oh
the
my
race.
God.
Well, I wasn't prepared like I should have been. I tried, but I didn't have the knowledge or the learning curve. So
Yeah.
I thank God every day for having me finish that race, because in some ways I almost feel like I didn't deserve it. The effort
At
was
what
there. I'm just not sure the training and the preparation and all the other things that should have been there, they weren't. So,
yeah.
that's one of those God grace moments. Like, I guess he wanted me to finish. Thank you, God.
At,
Um,
at what point in that one did you feel and this is the reason I'm asking this is because every runner knows this, that what was the point where you started doing the math backwards, where you go, I have a half marathon, I got 10 miles, or was it like I got 3 miles and we got to go at a 10-minute pace and make it?
Well, the whole race was a grind. But there are a couple points in particular that I've got to point out. The first point of significance was about mile 42. I'm going up the first huge, I had a couple of mountain climbs, but this was like the two major mountain climbs occurred at mile 40 and mile 42 and mile 41 and mile 53. So I'm about halfway up the first mountain and my knees are killing me, my hips hurting, and I'm having trouble breathing. And I still got half the mountain to go. And then I got to do it again. And, I'm 58 miles away from finishing. And I'm just like, oh my God, how am I going to finish? So there's doubt that kind of went in there. I'm starting to do the math, but more than the math, just like, I don't know how much longer I can keep going. Well, long story short, I pushed through. You have a lot of highs and lows in this. That was definitely a low, but you push through long enough and then it gets better. Just wait 20 minutes. The whole race changes a bit. So then, it was a grind the rest of the way. I had my moments here and there, but yeah, with about 45 minutes left, I was probably like 3 miles from the finish, which normally it's like, 45 minutes and 3 miles. Well, you remember you just ran 97. So it's a little different and it's uphill. And essentially I had to pick my pace up the last 3 miles or I wouldn't have finished on time. And that was tough because mentally, emotionally, physically, I was beat, down so badly. But it's one of those things like I came here to finish. I didn't come here to quit. I may or may not make it, but it won't be because I didn't lay it all on the table. And, again, I thank God for this, but I was able to finish. But yeah, all the other times in there was just like constant suffering. And you're like, okay, I came here to do this. I'm not quitting. Yeah, it hurts, but it's going to hurt to quit. So I was a pretty determined guy, which really helped me a lot in finishing. But that last 45 minutes was probably some of the most nerve-wracking 45 minutes of my life. And because, it was that uncertainty. I didn't know. And to think, gosh,
Yeah.
I might run 99 miles and not finish this darn thing. That was scary. I mean, I
Yeah.
literally was scared. I had fear inside of me. And I think perhaps that actually activated some adrenaline and maybe gave me something that I, under ordinary circumstances, wouldn't have had to finish. And it was a real
Yeah.
rush to finish. Part B of your question was 5 times. Why 5 times? Well, the first time, okay, is to do something incredible. Well, what I learned in that, the experience was incredible. I feel like I learned so much about myself, and it was, despite the pain, there was a lot of joy, a lot of exhilaration, a lot of esteem building, and just, there's something that happens to you when you cross 100-mile finish line. You feel like $1,000,000. You feel really important. You feel really um, powerful. And I got that feeling. I mean, and it was kind of like, wow, I like this. And after I crossed the finish line, I wasn't thinking, I can't wait to come back next year. Actually, it was 7 years before I went back again. But it inspired me to go on and do other things. And then in this case, about 5 years later, the itch came. I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this again. I like the way that made me feel. I like the person that I became in the process of preparing for this. And then also now I've got the learning curve, and I was excited to maybe try and finish better and do it faster. And I just love the people who put the race on. Essentially, they saved a community from from turning into a ghost town by starting these races and bringing tourism to the town. So I love the culture. I love the spirit of Leadville, and it's very enticing to want to go back. And each time I finish, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm coming back or not, but it keeps calling me. Not every year, but every few years. And so, yeah, I mean, I went back in 2005. 2005 is my first one. 2012 was my second. 2016 was my third. 2017 was my fourth, and 2021 was my fifth. So you could say I have a love affair with this race that seems to last a lifetime.
And
I don't
how
know if
old
I'm
were
going
you?
back. I haven't decided, but now I'm at the point where it's like, well, I won't be surprised if I get the itch again. I'm not going back next year, but
Yeah.
maybe in the future. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's awesome.
No,
One of the best things I've done. One quick sentence and we'll move on. But what I tell people is Leadville is by far, hands down, no contest, the hardest thing that I have ever done in my life. No question. I've done a lot of other hard things, but nothing compares to this. But I'll also say that it's probably the greatest thing I've done in my life, and it's done the most for me. It is so exhilarating. It is so life fulfilling. That's why I keep going back, not because of the pain and torture per se, although enduring that, it has a powerful positive impact on you. But the Leadville has given me back 100 times of what I've invested into it.
Yeah, and I love that. And just to get a quick perspective on it, how old were you at 2021? I know this was this year. What was the age?
Oh, I'm 56.
So you ran 100 miles at 56.
Yes.
And the whole point I'm bringing that up is because it removes limitations. There's no,
True.
I can't do this, I can do that, we're gonna do that. Only John can run 100 miles. John didn't even know he could run 100 miles until he was 40. What do you mean? So I just bring all this up because it's a token of inspiration, and it should inspire everyone. And I've felt similar moments to what you're talking about in regard to Leadville. I haven't done that, but with me running a couple different marathons, and then I also completed the 75 hard, Andy
Yes.
Frisella and Ed Milet's thing. That was really one of the ones. When your training is that intense, you become this person of the machine. Get up at 4 a.m., go run 20 miles, go to work. They're all like, how'd you go to work doing that? And you go, I don't know. I'm special.
Yeah, there you go. I'm unusual. One thing in some ways, I wish we didn't even have birthdays. I wish we didn't even talk to people about their age. I really feel like it's irrelevant. And I think in many cases, we make judgments about ourselves and about other people based on age. And it's the most ridiculous thing. You know, I was the strongest in my life at age 48. Why? Because I committed to weightlifting when I was like 46, and I lifted really hard for a couple of years. So when I was 48, I benched 300 pounds. I couldn't even come close to doing that in my 20s and 30s. Not that I couldn't have done it. I just didn't commit to it. And I see guys in the gym who are in their mid 60s and they're throwing up 450, 500 pounds. Age has nothing to do with it. Now, age and biology, there's a factor in it, but that factor is very small.
Yeah.
The influencing factors are really your attitude, your training regimen, what you put into your body, all this other stuff. Age is just, so many people think, 90% of the influence is age. No, 10% of the influence is age. 90% of the influence is your outlook, your attitude, what you subject yourself to. I don't mean to brag here, but people are oftentimes like, my God, I can't believe how hard you work out. And I think what they're saying is, I don't think I've never seen 56-year-olds work out this hard. It's like, well, when I go work out, I don't say, well, I'm 56, I should do this and not this. When I go work out, I work out as hard as I can. And I've done that at age 30, 40, 50, 60, or not 60 yet, but it's like, am I not able to do some things that I could 10 years ago? Maybe, but there's some things I actually do better. So I even think about age. Let's go away from sports for just a second. Snapchat. Okay. Get to the younger generation of your listeners here. Okay. The guy who started Snapchat, I think he was like a billionaire at age 14. So what? Do you need to be 30 or 40 years old to be a successful CEO or to run your own company? No. The kid's 14. Age does not matter. If you want to be a successful business person, you need to have a great idea and you need to do the things that create a great business. He came up with a product that people wanted, and he found a way to offer it to people at a value and a price that attracted venture capitalists and et cetera, et cetera. That's why he made $1 million. It's not because he was 14 or 24 or 44 or 64. Age had nothing to do with it. Look at some of your actors. Morgan Freeman, famous actor. Like, wow, people don't realize he didn't even have a major part in Hollywood until it's either early or late 50s. Most of them, you're on the down. You're like, gee, Hollywood, if you haven't made it by 40, forget it. He didn't even get started until he's in his 50s.
Yeah.
Age has nothing to do with it. Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken, rest in peace. He didn't even start that business until he was like 65 years old. And I don't even think he realized any substantial success until he was past 70. So who cares about age? Why does it matter? I think I mentioned earlier, there's a 101-year-old guy who just ran a marathon. Don't tell me you can't run past 100. You can. Forget this age stuff. It's what can you do? What do you commit to? Are you willing to pay the price?
Yeah.
Not about age. It's about action. It's about ability. It's about networking. It's about putting yourself in positions to succeed. And, we like experience. Like, well, do you have experience? Okay, experience is nice. And when you're hiring someone to do a job, you can hire a lot of 45-year-olds with 20 years experience, and they can't hold a candle to a 21-year-old with 1 year experience or no years experience. Because this 21-year-old is eager to learn and he will work hard. So, I'm not saying experience doesn't matter, but sometimes we put too much faith and credence in, how old are you, how much seniority or experience you have, those are minor factors. The major factors don't really have to do with age or experience. It probably has to do with attitude and ability to learn and loving people and a passion for improvement. Those are the things that really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with all that. I love the energy coming out of you and the excitement because it is true. There's no limitations on what we can do or can't do. And I do always not find myself there, but I do find it interesting that once we're on a journey, it's not always that we're because you have to realize that maybe you haven't been on the same journey for 25 years or 50
Mhm.
years or you might have only lived 4 years in this new version of yourself because we're not always the same person on who we
Right.
are and we're constantly growing. The other thing I was going to add is you mentioned that you were going hard in the gym, and the reason I bring this up is because there's very different ways of going to the gym. People can go
Mhm.
and pick up a dumbbell and curl a
Yeah.
dumbbell that they feel comfortable with, or
Yeah.
they can go and really try to make it the most meaningful 30, 45 an hour of their time because that's just the way it is. Like this morning, I ran 4 miles, I ran in 40 minutes. I was
Ooh.
trying to make the most of the time. And when we do that, it allows us to accelerate and we don't run into that I don't have time excuse, which is it.
Amen.
So, yeah, absolutely. So let's dive over to the next stuff. So, with you, 5 times Leadville, incredible. Tell us about the charity component and how did that impact you on wanting to continue to give and
Sure.
how's that even implemented?
Well, okay. And again, these just sound like random events that happen, but you know what? Life is a series of random events. So in 2011, I got the itch again to do Leadville. And a very good friend of mine who I had been training with a lot, I wasn't planning for Leadville. We were just trying to stay in shape, guys in their 40s, like, hey,
Mm,
let's stay young. We like to play
yeah.
basketball, like, let's stay in shape. And so I told him, I said, listen, I'm going back to Leadville and I need to do this again. And he's like my very best friend, Rick Fountain. And he said, John, he said, tell you what, I will train with you. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, I'll train with you. And I'm thinking, wow, you're biting off a big bite here to train for something like this when you're not even going to run it. I was very humbled and blown away. But as we started, he was committed to me and my success. So as we started running, I was like, Rick, I said, as long as you're going to do the training, would you want to run the race? And I think he was intimidated. And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. I was like, well, just think about it. Because if you're going to do the training with me and I'm going to do it, you could. And so long story short, eventually he did decide to do it. And we ran that race together and it was wonderful. But along the way, we have another friend and he had an 8-year-old daughter who contracted Ewing's sarcoma, which is a rare form of bone cancer. It was so sad. Well, the family was struggling, not only emotionally, just going through all these treatments, but also incurring a lot of other expenses. Just travel back and forth to the hospital, meals on the road, hotel nights, blah, 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 blah. And they had another child. And so Rick said to me, he said, you know what? He said, why don't we dedicate this race to Charlie, the 8-year-old girl? There's a chapter about her in the book as well. And I'm like, that sounds like a really good idea. And he said, and why don't we raise money for her? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So there were some other fundraising efforts going on, but people started following our training. This is pretty unusual for Iowa. In Colorado, the race is a little more popular. More people know about it. But in Iowa, people, what? 100, what do you get? 100 miles in the mountain? You're kidding? So we were kind of like local celebrities a little bit. And people started following us. And, I was doing some blogging and some stuff on social media. And so then we decided, hey, let's start taking some donations and some pledges, per mile and all this stuff. And we'll donate the proceeds to Charlie. and her family. And so that's what we did. So that time we ended up raising like about $10,000 for her family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I mean, that probably pales in comparison to some of the expenses they incurred, but hey, $10,000 can pay for a lot of gas tanks and meals, and more than anything, it was probably just the gesture and maybe some of the attention that we brought to her and her family. We did. We had a couple articles in the newspaper. We were on the local news being interviewed by a sportscaster, and she got on TV. So it was really cool. Another neat thing about that was, as we were training is hard sometimes. And Rick says,
Yeah.
John, he said, there's no way we cannot finish this race. Number one, some people are pledging per mile. So if we don't finish some miles, we're taking money away from her and her family. And that was not acceptable. And the second thing he said, we can't come back to Iowa and look this little girl in the eye who's been going through radiation and chemo and saying, gee, Charlie, we're sorry, we couldn't finish. We were too tired. And she became like our motivation. So when training got tough, we talk about Charlie, and we'd always finish our workout strong. And then even during the race, it's a tough race. To pretend it's a bed of roses is a lie. I mean, everybody runs into doubts. And there's times during the race, you're like, well, maybe I'm done. Maybe I won't finish. Every time those thoughts creeped into our mind, we thought of Charlie. And so is this kind of an ironic turn of events, but we originally teamed up with this family to try and bring them comfort and try to help them. In the end, she ended up being our source of inspiration to help us do better in our race. And it was a total win-win because there were good things happened to the family, but I didn't realize how powerful that was in my training, in our training, and in our purpose for what we did. So then 4 years later, we ran the race again, and we picked up 4 other guys. So we had this group we called the QC Leadville 6, and we went out to Leadville together to run this race. But now we have a network of 4 other guys and all of their friends and business associates and things like that. So we ended up raising $35,000 for a couple of charities. And, a same kind of thing. It's like when you start running for other causes and other people, it inspires your training and it makes you feel good. It's not just, there's nothing wrong with just going out and running a race just for yourself. That's okay. But now when you're doing it for someone else and doing it for a worthy cause, it becomes bigger than yourself. And then you start to become bigger than you were in a very positive way. And then the very last race that I just did, I ended up raising about $10,000 for Autism Speaks. And my second son had autism when he was like 2.5. We worked really hard and essentially got the diagnosis removed by the time he was 10. Which that's another miracle in and of itself. But, that's a cause that I'm supportive and sensitive to. So, again, so collectively, I feel very proud that I've been a big part of raising $50,000 for some really good causes. And it's like the 2 times I did the race where I didn't raise money, they were still great races. But the 3 times I did, it had that special element that I'm so proud of and so excited about. And it was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a world of difference because, I mean, when we did the New York City one, it was me and my brother, and we were raising money for Colorectal Cancer Alliance. Nice. And we raised like $8,000. And first of all, it just adds another deeper element of that charitable giving, that philanthropy. And then the other amazing thing is that as you're going through it, you kind of gain from that community. So John, I think the really awesome thing about you is we always talk about what our friends are, like the 5 people around us influence us the most. So the fact that you ran Leadville several times and got it up to a group of 6, I bet you would be a group of 12. because everyone's always looking for someone. It's like, oh, if you hang out with 5 millionaires, you're going to be a millionaire. If you hang out with 5 marathoners, you're going to be a marathon. Like, it's just, it is what it is. And I love to see that it actually happens in practice, even with such an incredibly hard and difficult race, where I can imagine that people could drop out at any given moment.
Oh, and this race has a DNF rate of 50%. So
Yeah.
for every 2 people that toe the starting line, 1 doesn't finish. And it's really impressive and sad. But when you think about it, everybody who starts, they're an accomplished runner. They're the type of person that they go run a marathon on the weekend, not because it's a race, it's a training run.
Yeah.
So that's the population that you're dealing with. So you got very serious runners. And to think half of them are not going to finish the race. Are you kidding me? But that's just how hard the race is.
Yeah, I could imagine. So, John, let's also touch about your marriage and how you've been able to keep it going for 33 years, and then we'll kind of wind this down. The reason I'm doing all this is because with Edwards Consulting, we have mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, relationships, and spirituality. And I feel like you've excelled in a lot of these areas. So that's why I kind of want to dive into 33 years. How does one do 33 years? Like, that's a long time to make it happen. One day at a time.
And again, you've mentioned it before, Jordan, the people you surround yourself with, that's a reflection of your quality of life. I go back to the way I was raised. Family has always, I grew up where family was an important element of my life. And, my parents, it sounds cliche that your parents are your role models. Yeah, they are. Are they perfect people? Probably not. I mean, I'm not sure anyone's perfect, but I hold them up on a pedestal, for the values that they passed on, for the wonderful family that they created, for my siblings that just like, oh my God, I feel like I won the lottery being born in the family that I was born into. And I think that carries on, to the rest of my life. So then, I'm still real close with my family. I see them quite a bit, but then, as you become an adult and then you start your own family and then you have your own children, my family is very important to me, and we really enjoy each other. I mean, it's, maybe some people kind of view family as like, oh, I got to do this for my family. That's not really the attitude I've gone through. I mean, I feel like it's a privilege. It's like, I get to be with my family. I love my family. I can't wait to do things with my family and see my family. And so, that extends from the family that I grew up with to the family that I have now. And, now I'm seeing it move into another generation, it's like, I'm a grandpa and my mom's a great grandma. And, it's just that, that tight knit thread of security and love, and people who know you well, and it extends some into friendships as well, but try to not take people for granted, and just help each other along the way. So families, it's been a really positive, important part of my life. It inspires me to try to do well and to try to be a role model for other people and do good things on this planet. And, I want to make my family proud, and they make me proud.
Absolutely. I love that, John. That's because you brought up a major point of, I get to do this, not I have to do this, because a lot of people view family as, we just had Thanksgiving. I have to go over there. I don't want to do that. And it's just not the case. You got to view it in that proper perspective and lens.
Sometimes they say you don't get to choose your family. Like, well, yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose my siblings, but maybe I just am lucky with the ones that were placed with me. But it's been good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So, John, where can people find you? What is it that you're looking for them to do? I know they should probably pick up Winning with Grit, but let us know.
Terrific. Thank you. So the easiest thing, Jordan, is, and I just got this thing finally, I've been working through some issues, but it's up and running and everything's great. So if they go to my website, successisworking.com, and if you have the opportunity to throw a link up on here or
I'm gonna put that. I'm
whatever,
gonna put the link in the bio. Yeah,
that's the key, because from that website, there's a link on there. They can buy the book. You buy 2 or more, it's free shipping in the United States. I also have an e-version of the book. So if people like Kindle or, some kind of e-reader, they can buy that as well. That's a little less expensive than the hard copy, but that's where they can get the book. And then I would really appreciate it if people kind of just checked out my website and sort of what I'm all about. I mentioned earlier in the podcast that while I'm really proud to be a professor and I love teaching college students and helping them grow and develop, another passion of mine that I'm looking to expand more into is doing more motivational speaking. I probably over the last 15 years, I've probably done like 250 talks for organizations, corporations, and I just want to do more of it. It just really inspires me and excites me. And I love to travel, so I will come to your place and things like that. So check me out. You can see some things about me. You can see some companies that I've done things for. I've got some testimonials on there and client lists and all that kind of stuff. So if you think that I can help your organization or your people, I'm there. We can do workshops. We can do keynotes. We can do coaching. We can do lots of different things. So I appreciate anybody who want to check it out. And part of the reason I wrote this book is I want to help people have a better life. And so I'm really proud of that.
Awesome. And on the website, is there a way, do they just message you, or is there an email that they should send to you, or?
Sure. Well, on there, everything. My email is there. My phone number is there. You can click to order the book. It's all pretty click through. If there's any issues, just text, call, or email me. But it really is pretty slick and smooth and should be easy to navigate. Take credit cards and Venmo and all that kind of stuff. So it's super simple.
Easy. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I have the book. I've read it and I think it's pretty amazing. So I think if you got the opportunity to talk to John or be around John, it's definitely worthwhile. So thank you guys, and we will talk again very soon.
Merry Christmas. Thanks.